There have been tons of unexpected deaths in Stranger Things. From Bob to Eddie, let's break them down in order. The first grisly moment set the tone of the whole series. In the hallway of Hawkins National Laboratory, a panicked scientist sprinted for the elevator, looked up, and vanished into the ceiling, torn away by a creature that did not belong in our world. That scientist's death is the opening sting, and it marks the first human loss to the Demogorgon as the lab's breach lets the Upside Down leak into Hawkins. Elsewhere in town, the pain already ran deep. Sarah Hopper's battle with cancer had ended before any of this began, a quiet loss that shaped every risky choice her father would later make. When government operatives hunted an escaped child with strange powers, a kind diner owner named Benny Hammond fed her, smiled, and covered for her meal. Minutes later, he lay dead on the floor, shot in the head by a federal fixer named Connie Frazier, as a cover-up tightened its grip on a town that still thought monsters belonged in bedtime stories. 2 lab agents who tried to seize that child, 11, were thrown by an invisible force and never got up again. Around them, older wounds surfaced. A suicide in town lived only in Hopper's memory, proof that Hawkins had ghosts long before it had gates. A missing girl, Barbara Holland, climbed onto a diving board behind Steve Harrington's house, then slipped into the cold night and into the creature's world. Barb never came back. In the lab's flashbacks, 2 orderlies died violently, one with his back broken against concrete, the other with his neck snapped by a force that couldn't be seen, and newspaper clippings hinted at MK Ultra fatalities, unnamed subjects who never walked away from experiments that were never supposed to exist. A search team in hazmat suits found a tattered vest marked Shepard, a reminder that a trained operative sent into the gate had been taken and killed. Town rumor filled in 2 names, Dale and Henry, residents who vanished and were later counted among the Demogorgon's victims. A rabbit died in the woods after Jonathan Byers fired a warning shot to scare off his father's tirade, the body a sharp little omen of what hunted in the trees. A wounded deer bled at the tree line, then was dragged into the dark and eaten. In the den beneath the library, a slick upside-down egg burst and was consumed by the predator that had made a nest of tunnels no one would want to search. On the road out of Hawkins, 11 flipped a pursuing van. The 2 agents inside did not survive their injuries from the crash. As the central gate pulsed red and the lab scrambled to maintain control, Hawkins kept counting. 2 more residents were later listed among the taken and killed, part of the 6 that Dr. Brenner grimly admitted had been snatched. In the school hallway, Connie Frazier's skull crushed under telekinetic pressure when she cornered the kids. 4 military police officers followed, their brains crushed the exact same way. Another lab employee fell with the same sudden, bone-deep crack. In the corridors, the Demogorgon ripped through a squad of soldiers, 4 of the veterans killed in a matter of seconds. It then found 2 more lab workers and tore them apart. Inside the upside-down version of the public library, vines twitched as Hopper fired bursts into living roots to clear a path. Moments later, in the gym, 11 faced the monster, disintegrated the Demogorgon, and vanished with it. 1 season in, Hawkins had already paid a high price in scientists, soldiers, neighbors, and a friend who never got to go home. The winter after that chaos brought a quieter grief. The Byers family dog, Chester, died between the 1st and 2nd seasons, a small loss that marked how the strange new normal kept wearing at the edges of ordinary life. When autumn returned, a flashback showed a squirrel hammered against a tree by an invisible shah, a snapshot of 11's feral, hungry months alone in the woods, where survival meant hard choices and a sickening carcass left behind. A cat named Muse became food for a growing creature that Dustin Henderson called D'Artagnan, one of many larvae tied to the tunnels hidden under town. In a memory from years earlier, Terry Ives pulled a trigger in a lab hallway, a guard crumpling from her shot, in a desperate attempt to reach the daughter she had been told was dead at birth. Then the lab fell to creatures. A team of scientists checked a tunnel camera, and dog-like Demogorgons rushed them in the dark. 7 died in an instant that blinked past on security feeds. In a split second from the past, Kaylee Prasad hunted and shot a former lab employee during a breathless revenge run that tried to even a score no one could really balance. When the tunnels finally surged into the facility, a technician went down in a smear of blood as demodogs poured through doors and vents. More techs died the same way, 5 bodies left where they fell. An MP tried to hold the line with a sidearm and was dragged off his feet. In grainy camera feeds and sprawled in corridors, 33 more employees were found dead, killed by the pack, while Will Byers, possessed, involuntarily guided the swarm toward them. Then the show took one of its kindest figures. Bob Newby figured out the map on Will's walls, fixed a broken lock with a smile, and sprinted down a hallway with a grin that whispered, "Almost there." He was mauled and devoured before Joyce could save him. 1 demodog died as 11 seized its body telekinetically. Hopper took down at least a dozen with controlled bursts in the tunnels and in the lab, clearing a path where none existed minutes earlier. When the gate closed, D'Artagnan's mind went quiet, along with the rest of the pack. Dozens of demodogs collapsed in a chain reaction, their hive cut from its source as the breach sealed, and the red glow dimmed to nothing. The summer after was louder, brighter, and far more crowded. In a Russian facility trying to rip open space beneath a small American mall, a test fire went wrong. 7 scientists disintegrated in a blast when the prototype key chewed itself apart. One surviving scientist died later, choked by a brutal enforcer named Grigory, a man with a mission and a stare as sharp as a knife. On the surface, rats in Hawkins began to explode by the hundreds, bodies liquefying as the Mind Flayer used them as raw material. The count ran well into the hundreds and left kitchens, basements, and alleys spattered with proof that something sentient was gathering mass. A local man, Jack Driscoll, died of natural causes off-screen, but the rat his wife had trapped still joined the wave of small bodies bursting into sludge. By the time the thing built at the steel mill began to stir, the tally had climbed again. In the hospital's halls, 2 co-workers, Bruce Lowe and Tom Holloway, murdered a nurse, a visitor, and a patient while under the Mind Flayer's sway, then went hunting Nancy Wheeler and Jonathan Byers with a manic, grinning focus that made the hospital floors look like a maze. The fight that followed was ugly and close. Jonathan drove a blade into Tom's neck. Nancy bashed Bruce's face until bone gave way. Both bodies melted into sludge that crawled away to join the monster. On a different floor, Dr. Zharkov took a jolt from a taser during a desperate escape. Then later the flayed kept feeding the growing creature. Heather Holloway, Janet Holloway, and Doris Driscoll dissolved into wet, crawling matter to make the physical form of the Mind Flayer stronger. 2 men, David and Adam, followed. 2 more, Jack and Melissa, added their bodies to the mass. A newspaper article later implied 19 additional Hawkins residents also melted and joined the pile. Their disappearances flattened into a few lines about a mall fire that hid the truth in plain sight. Across town, the spy game turned kinetic. At Starcourt, Hopper shot 4 guards in the bowels of the base while Grigori kept closing in. In the parking lot fight that followed, Eleven whipped a car into a squad of soldiers with a flick of her wrist. 4 of them died from their injuries, sprawled across asphalt and twisted metal. The 4th of July fair lit the night, and Alexei, the defector who loved Cherry, laughed with a stuffed prize in his hands, then collapsed with a hole in his chest after Grigori's bullet punched through him. In the final sprint, Hopper drove Grigori into the churning gears of the key. The machine ate him. Under the mall, 5 scientists died in the explosion when Joyce turned both keys and shut the portal. The spider monster, the fleshy giant made from the flayed, collapsed the second the gate closed, disconnected from the thing that gave it purpose. On the far side of the world in Kamchatka, a prisoner died in an iron and ice arena, ripped open by a captive Demogorgon for the entertainment of guards who had seen too much. Then the monster turned on Billy Hargrove at the mall. It had controlled him, used him, and nearly made him a weapon that would have killed a child. He shook free long enough to shield Eleven. Tentacles pierced his sides and drove through his chest. Blood soaked his shirt. He died on the floor as fireworks cracked overhead, and the mall burned from the inside out. When dawn arrived, Starcourt fell quiet, the lights went out, and the town began counting the missing. The next year looked different from every angle. A massacre in a lab flashed in fragments, then in full. Children with numbers died on the floor with bones broken and eyes ruined. Guards and orderlies twisted mid-stride, doors torn from hinges by invisible hands. In the reassembled truth, one, the orderly who had guided 11, snapped necks and crushed bodies, killing 6, Dr. Ellis, Alec, and 10, along with a long list of numbered kids, orderlies, and guards before turning on 11 and trying to finish the job. She turned it back on him and cast him through a tear in the wall, which made him something worse. Years later, in 1986, Hawkins felt the echo. A cheerleader named Chrissy Cunningham suffered waking nightmares, walked into Eddie Munson's trailer, and died, hovering in the air as her bones snapped, and her eyes went blank. In the woods and on a lonely road, a haunted boy named Fred Benson crashed, crawled, and then rose into the same killing ritual that left him broken above the asphalt. In Russia, Jim Hopper took a guard's ankle cuffs and turned them into a garrote, killing the man who had been choking him in a workhouse covered in frost. A few hours later, 5 guards died in a blast when Hopper and the team turned a smuggled pack of explosives into an escape plan. In California, a federal shootout left agents dead on a living room floor while the kids tried to keep a target alive. Agent Harmon returned fire, bought a few seconds, and later died of his wounds while telling them to run. In a haunted memory from 1959, Henry Creel tore apart the family dog and small animals around the house, then murdered his mother Virginia and his sister Alice by breaking their bodies in midair. He showed his father the images later to twist guilt and grind the edges of memory. A caller mentioned a great uncle who never came home, one more absence buried in a family story. Back in 1986, a high school swimmer named Patrick McKinney rose and shattered above Lover's Lake. Another victim claimed midair by a predator that mocked its prey before the killing blow. Under the surface, fish stabbed on thorned vines and the upside down twitched and went still. More biomass feeding a nest that no one wanted to see with their own eyes. The prison in Kamchatka ran a spectacle for its guards. Prisoners were dragged into a stone arena and set against a Demogorgon. Oleg died fast, then 5 more prisoners were ripped apart in seconds. In that same complex, Demodogs were later found dead by the dozen, some shot by Hopper, others burned by Murray Bauman's flamethrower when the plan shifted from rescue to extermination. At least one Demodog went down to a clean headshot from Hopper in the smoke and snow. Back in Hawkins, a furious swarm of Demobats attacked the team in the Upside Down. Nancy Wheeler and Robin Buckley beat one to death with oars near the boat launch. Eddie Munson stabbed another as it swooped. Steve Harrington smashed one to the pavement and tore it in half with both hands. In the lab flashbacks, more names from security logs fell to one's rampage. Blackman and Thatcher slammed into walls on the floor, dead on impact. Another guard hit the ceiling and crumpled. Seeley died when his body met concrete. Miller's neck snapped in a blink. An unnamed child's bones and eyes were destroyed. 2 more guards died the same way. 4, another child with a number and a shaved head, rose and broke midair like glass with no sound. 2 more test subjects followed, and then another handful of orderlies and guards in a sequence that looked less like a fight and more like gravity changing its mind. In the Nevada desert, a helicopter gunner shot Martin Brenner in the back and chest. He bled out in the dust beneath a sky that had watched him turn children into case files. As soldiers pursued, 11 brought down the helicopter with a single look, and 2 who were inside did not walk away. At the Neenah site, 6 guards and 11 scientists lay dead by the end of the attack, riddled by bullets until the facility went quiet. A moment later, with the desert suddenly still, the road back to Hawkins felt both closer and more dangerous. Then came the long night. In the tunnels beneath the Russian prison, a Demodog convulsed under a surge of electricity when Joyce jammed a taser into its hide. Murray swung a flamethrower around until the room blazed and fell silent, burning through cages packed with snarling demonic shapes. In the arena, Hopper lit a Demogorgon on fire, staggered it, then cut its head off with a sword as it lunged. The camera cut back to the Creel house, where a guitar solo bought time and a storm of leather-winged things turned and descended. Eddie Munson made a choice, lured the swarm and fought on his feet until the bites and slashes knocked him down and kept him there. Vecna's hold on Max Mayfield tightened as the clock tolled 4. Bones broke, eyes went blank. Her heart stopped. Moments later, 11 reached her mind and pulled her back. Max lived, barely, after reviving into a coma after flatlining. In the attic below, Jason Carver found the ritual in progress, struck Lucas Sinclair, and pulled a gun. When the final gate opened, the floor split between Jason's feet and the dimensional seam tore him in half. The 4 tiers met at the town center, and the ground convulsed like the lake had hours earlier. Radio chatter listed the earthquake's toll at 22 dead in Hawkins, Jason among them. Another was presumed to be Eddie, despite where he really fell. That left 20 unnamed residents lost to collapsing buildings, fires, and ruptured streets, the first casualties of an invasion that had only just begun. In the Russian complex, the mop-up turned grim. A warden named Melnikov died in the chaos, and nearly 30 more guards, prisoners, and scientists were listed among the bodies after the monsters broke loose and the fight lit the holdfast from wall to wall. When the night ended, burned Demodogs lay in piles, the decapitated Demogorgon curled in ash, and Demobats rained to the ground after their hive mind collapsed. The house on Moorhead buckled where it stood. The monitors beside Max's bed beeped into a new rhythm. The field behind Hopper's cabin darkened as tendrils from the other side began to invade the world above. Season by season, the record is brutal and precise, and it reaches into corners that many would never expect from its first few episodes. In the beginning, it took a lab scientist in an elevator, a mother lost to illness, a diner owner who showed kindness, a federal cleaner who thought she could control the damage, 2 agents tossed by a force they could not see, a bullied teen who went to a party and never came home, 2 orderlies the lab trained and used, faceless MK Ultra victims who faded into clippings, a field operative named Shepard, 2 residents taken in the night, an animal in the wrong place, a deer that fed a predator, an egg that did not hatch, a pair of men in a flipped van, a string of military police and lab staff crushed by invisible hands, soldiers and technicians ripped apart by a thing with too many teeth, a living vine in a library that bled like anything else, and the Demogorgon itself. In the second run, it added a family dog between seasons, a squirrel in a flashback, a cat in a kitchen, a guard in a hard, short memory of a woman reaching for her child, 7 scientists killed by demodogs, a former employee shot by Kali, a technician ambushed in the tunnels, 5 more techs and 1 MP dragged down, 33 employees seen dead across the lab, Bob Newby in a hallway inches from safety, a single demodog seizing under Eleven's power, a dozen more falling to Hopper's controlled bursts, D'Artagnan going still the instant the gate snapped shut, and more than 24 demodogs dying in the same heartbeat when the hive link failed. Then the summer gates opened, and the counter spun even faster. 7 Russian scientists died in a test blast, 1 more strangled by Grigori, 393 rats exploded across Hawkins, Jack Driscoll passed away off-screen while his household still fed the swarm. A nurse, a visitor, and a patient were murdered in the hospital. Bruce and Tom were killed in a fight, and then melted into the monster. Heather, Janet, and Doris joined the mass along with David, Adam, Jack, Melissa, and 19 more residents folded into a single body. 4 Russian soldiers died beneath a thrown car. Alexei was shot at the fair. Grigory died in the keys turning gears. Billy died under the spider monster's tentacles. 5 scientists were lost in the Starcourt explosion. The spider monster collapsed when the door closed, and a prisoner in Kamchatka fed a caged demogorgon that would not stay caged for long. The 4th chapter pulled the past into the present and doubled the cost. The massacre victims began with 6, Dr. Ellis, Alec, and 10. Then kept going through numbered children and uniformed staff as one walked a path of broken necks and shattered eyes. In Hawkins, Chrissy, Fred, and Patrick rose and broke, each death announcing Vecna's method in terrible detail. In California, agents fell in a living room and Agent Harmon died after buying his friends a minute. In Russia, a guard died at Hopper's hands and 5 guards died in an explosion. In Old Creel memories, a family dog and small animals were killed. Then Virginia and Alice Creel died while the house stood still. A great-uncle's absence lingered like a held breath. In the Upside Down, fish skewered on vines fed a nest. In Kamchatka, Oleg and other prisoners died in an arena. Demodogs died by gunfire and fire, and a demogorgon died by flame and a sword. In the sky over Nevada, a helicopter fell, and its crew did not survive. At the Nina site, guards and scientists died under a barrage of bullets. Martin Brenner died with the sand soaking up the last of his power. Back in Hawkins, demobats died to oars, knives, and bare hands. A demodog died to a taser. Eddie Munson died on the street he refused to run from. Max Mayfield died and was pulled back. Jason Carver died along a fault line when the final gate tore across the floor. And 20 unnamed residents died in the earthquake that followed, the first wave of a larger disaster folding over the town. So these have been all of the deaths from Stranger Things, all the way from its first episode until the end of Season 4. Which death hit you the hardest? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more Stranger Things content and theories, click the video on screen now.